Okay, welcome back. Today we're starting class number 9 of the 48 Ways to Wisdom. This chapter is titled Tahara, purity. Now, this one's a little bit less straightforward, in my opinion, than some of the other chapters like Simcha. Um, but uh, but so I had to read this one a few times. But we're going to try to dig into the concept behind purity, why that's so important for us in our day-to-day life. So, explained by Rav Noach, is three different types of purity: intellectual purity, which we'll get into in a little bit more in depth, but basically keeping a focused mind that isn't polluted with a lot of other distractions, keeping a focused, our emotions focused and in check, and having clarity and purity of our goals. So that's purity of thought, purity of emotion, purity of goals. So these are the three types of purity that we're going to be discussing. Um, so the first one, purity of thought, was we've discussed many times. This book is all about not being ADD, meaning how to focus on one thing and realizing that that doesn't come naturally to us. We have to work on that. How to build up our focus on one task at a time. Now, and it gives the example in some mitzvot that we do when you were doing a mitzvah, we say hineni muchan mizuman lekayem mitzvah ta ta ta. So we say before doing some mitzvot uh, that maybe we should be saying before all mitzvot. We say this declaration of focusing our mind towards this specific task. And we have to really, learn to focus our minds on one thing. Actually, it's a nice example, not even my sports example. Rav Noach also gives many of the sports examples here that you take a champion pole vaulter, in the Olympic Games, and they're about to do their jump, and they have, they're just totally poised, totally focused. They're not thinking about, what they're going to do after the, competition or what, what's going on in the news or anything. No, right before, as they're standing in front of that bar that they have to jump over, they're thinking about one thing, and that's just, getting in the right mindset to execute that jump from all the times that they've practiced doing it again and again and again. So they're super focused and not distracted by a bunch of other things. Um, so let's see, there's an example here that, okay, so like big picture when you started driving a car, the first time you drove a car, you're like in hyper focus. If even someone tries talking to you while you're driving, you're like, no, don't talk to me right now. I need to totally focus on this one task at hand. But over time, we learn to drive, listening to the radio, while maybe taking a phone call, while calming down some kids in the back seat. So we learn eventually how to kind of refine, how to build on our skill of driving and how to like multitask a bit, even though obviously we shouldn't multitask too much on the road as well. But we do learn to do it to a certain extent the more that we drive. Now, we can do that with all skills. There's actually a Rav Chaim Ozer Grodzensky who is capable of writing two completely different letters to people at the same time while also having a conversation with someone else. So that's just a kind of a remarkable example of out of the ordinary. But the way to multitask is to first build your skills in focusing on one task at a time, which again, we've talked about this in some of the other classes about how to properly listen, properly learn, things like that. Building up that attention span, for 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then for an hour, and that will keep our minds focused. He actually doesn't get into it so much here, but we need to, focus on good things that basically keep our minds healthy and holy, and not. He really doesn't get into it in this chapter, but not seeing too many things that will contaminate our minds. The news and just too many things that will take us away from our goal in life. Again, distractions. So we want to stay razor focused, as it says here, and try to limit distractions for ourselves so that we can have purity of mind. Now, purity of emotion. Purity of emotion is having the right emotional state. You want to go to a wedding and be happy there. You go to observe Tisha B'Av, you need to be sad there. To be in the right state of mind. Here's another example. You guys, a great sports example. It's the team is running onto the field, the football team, and excited for the big game. And the quarterback, as he runs onto the field, he's not thinking about his next mortgage payment, or he's focused on the game. He's not just the focus, like we said before, mentally, also emotionally, and keeping his emotions in check. Maybe he is nervous, but knowing that you can't be totally freaked out and operate at your best. You have to keep yourself calm. Things like that. Knowing how to keeping our emotions in check. Emotional purity is keeping ourselves calm when we need to be calm, letting ourselves be excited when we need to be excited, sad, being in charge of our emotions and not, letting depression and sadness creep in when we're trying to be happy for Chagim or Shabbat or a Simcha, things like that. We should try to be in that right frame of mind, which is usually Simcha. But there are times, again, for funeral, Tisha B'Av, there are times when we need to be sad as well. Okay. So then let's see here. And we need to really work on blocking out our negative emotions, our worries. We've talked about this before in the Simcha chapter, that we always have worries, and we need to sometimes keep our worries under control by either just letting them kind of roll off our backs a little bit, or try to find problems to these solutions to these problems, so we don't have as many worries in life, right? Now, the last one that he mentions, the third one, is the purity of goals. Now, clarity is very similar to purity here. Having total clarity in when you're trying to attain a goal, you need to know what your goal is to really be able to attain it. You want to get married? Why? Is your goal companionship? Are you hoping to find someone who will fulfill your deepest needs? Are you looking to find someone to whom you can give? You have to ask yourself these questions. Why am I doing this goal? And try to get clarity. Rav Noach was big on the 5-finger clarity of just being very clear on your goals with things, and not so that you can establish what your goal is, and that that's your goal because you've thought it out, and then you can just attack it and go for it, because that that's your goal, and you're going to work and do what you have to do to get to that goal. Whether it's like I'm going to finish Masechet Rosh Hashanah, and you're going to say, I'm going to finish it by Pesach, so I can finish it in time for Erev Pesach to make a siyum. And you list out all the reasons why it would be good to do such a thing, and you work at it, and you do it, and you achieve your goal. So make clear goals, and then do what you have to do to get to achieve them. Okay, so just to summarize, 3 types of purity: intellectual purity, keeping our minds focused; emotional purity, keeping our emotions in check; and purity of goals, which is making our goals clarified, so that we can go for them with a lot of enthusiasm. Okay, and we need to build up our focus muscles so that we can multitask but not get distracted. Find the right emotion for the right time. Have passion, put your heart into something, and when you're making goals, be clear on them, think them through thoroughly, and then go for it. So here's a little bit about purity. We will do next time the 10th, which is Shimush Chachamim, serving the wise. Thanks a lot.